we have, Baruch Hashem, the story that everyone has heard. There are many, many details to the story, but we want to take it in a little bit different direction. Not necessarily focus on all the details of the story itself, but rather relating the story and what happened to our nation, 3,334 years ago, to what is happening to each and every one of our lives every day. We are all waiting for the MaShiach. Unlike the Christians that think that their little idol came and left and he's coming back again, or unfortunately some Jews even that believe that their rabbi died, but he's alive, but he's dead, but he's going to come back again. All of this stuff, the accepted opinion and accepted halacha in Judaism is that the Mashiach has not come yet. He hasn't arrived. When he arrives, everyone will know and everyone will agree he is Mashiach. It's not going to be debatable anymore. It's not going to be argumentative anymore. Not everyone's going to be happy about it. But needless to say, the whole world is going to know this is Mashiach, which is again the one factor that all of the false Mashiachs from previous generations, whether they came from Orthodox Jews or they came from idol-worshipping Christians or anybody else in between, this is the one factor that obviously no Mashiach has ever met, because there was always debate of whether he is or he isn't, and of course the real Mashiach, there is not going to be a debate. The whole world will know that the Mashiach has arrived, just like the whole world knew that Am Yisrael was released from being slaves to being the masters. When we were slaves in Egypt, we became the masters because the Egyptians gave us all of their gold. Just get out of here. Literally, their entire nation was destroyed. The entire world also knew that HaShem split the ocean for us. The entire world also knew that we received the manna bread. The entire world also knew that we got the Torah at Mount Sinai, and there was a revelation at Mount Sinai that millions of us saw in real life. It wasn't some theory or some story. We saw the voice of God. We saw the sound of God. Anyone that wants to know what that means, to see sound, I recommend to read the book by Rabbi Zamir Cohen called The Coming Revolution, or it's also called Science Comes of Age. It's in our Kiruv package, but you could also buy it on Amazon and different websites. It's a fantastic book, part of a series of books that he's written mostly in Hebrew, but this one particular one was also translated to English for the English-speaking crowd, as well as other languages. Either way, we have the Mashiach is not going to be anything less than Matan Torah. We received the Torah. The entire world knew we received the Torah. The entire world knew that we left Egypt. We were taken out with miracle after miracle, the 10 plagues, and the climax of this world is going to be the Mashiach actually arriving. That's going to be the climax. There's going to be a war of Gog and Magog. There's going to be a resurrection of the dead thereafter. There's going to be a lot of stuff going on. So this is the climax of the world. This is what we've all been waiting for since creation. And of course, this is not going to be any less than what happened at Mount Sinai. In fact, the book of Jeremiah, the prophet Jeremiah says in the name of God that in fact it will be bigger than what happened at Mount Sinai, where God will no longer be called the God that took his people out of Egypt, but rather he's going to be called the God that took his people out of the land of the north. Interestingly enough, several years ago, I had this chidush where we realized that the only place in the world that has the name North in it, that's a continent where you have Jews, is North America, where you have Canada and America, the U.S., that has the majority of the Jews in the world outside of Israel. Either way, this event of Mashiach arriving is going to be an enormous event. There's not going to be any doubts that he arrived. There's not going to be any doubts that it's him. There's not going to be any of these doubts. And that's one of the things that is an important factor to know, that when HaShem brings you the salvation, you're not going to have any doubts. There's not going to be any more questions. There's not going to be any more issues. There's not going to be any discussions. This is it. Now, even more so, when a person is struggling in their own lives, whatever it is they're struggling with, whether it's to find their shidduch, their bashel that they've been waiting for and looking to marry somebody their whole life, that they can raise a Jewish home with, full of Torah, full of mitzvot, when they've been waiting for a child for so many years, and time after time they try and they simply have not had the blessing. When they wait for the right job, when they wait for the promotion, when they, of course, everything in its own level. There are different salvations that people are wait for, to get healing, both spiritual and physical healing. All of these things are individual salvations that people wait for. And anyone that has received a complete blessing in their life, whether it's to find their shidduch or have a son or a daughter, after waiting for it for a long time, or a miraculous healing, everyone that has received that particular full blessing, knew this was it. There was no question. No one can take it away from you at that point. This is to be true. This is to be real. And no one can tell you maybe yes, maybe no, because you feel it, that this is it. And that's in essence one of the things that we all wait for. Not just the ultimate salvation of the world, the ultimate Kiddush HaShem, where the HaShem will bring the MaShiach to destroy all of the enemies of the Torah, the MaShiach that will bring us our salvation, but also we all await our own personal salvation. Some are smaller, some are bigger, some are short-term, some are long-term. And we want that salvation to be unquestionable. We want that salvation to be clear. We want that salvation to be something that we can take to the bank, that we're not going to have any sleepless nights over it. And one of the things that people don't realize is that in order for you to get that level of clarity, that level of blessing, you have to already know it comes with a price. The price is the tests, the salvation test, the Exodus test, the Emunah test, the Bitachon test. These tests that will come before the ultimate salvation, either to help you earn the merit to receive the salvation, or to see if you even believe that God is the only way that you can get the salvation. And this is one of the things that most people don't realize, or don't want to realize, and simply don't want. They don't want the test. They just want the blessing. But it doesn't work that way. And we learned that from Parashat Va'eira. We learned that from Sefer Shmot in general. And these are some of the things we're going to go over it tonight, Be'ezrat Hashem. So, first we see that in the first verse of this parasha, we see Vayidaber Elohim el Moshe Vayomer elav Ani Adonai. This is by far one of the verses that I've spent the most amount of time on in my life, delving into, because on one end you're looking at it from a rational perspective. God is speaking to Moshe, and he's telling him, "I'm God." Well, obviously, I don't think that Moshe was doubting whether you're God or not. So we realize that there's more to this message than just simply God telling Moshe, "Hi, nice to meet you, I'm God." So the sages explained to us that at the end of last week's Parashat Shmot, when Moshe Rabbeinu came to Egypt, demanded that Paro release the Jewish people. Paro not only did not release, but he committed a blasphemy, saying, "Who is this God that I should listen to him?" And made the situation much more difficult for Am Yisrael. The work became much, much worse. The test got even worse, got much bigger. And Am Yisrael began to suffer exponentially more than what they were already suffering. They were already suffering the death of their children when they didn't meet their quotas. They were already suffering, losing body parts and eyesights and losing family members, and not having the ability to be clean, not having the ability to be intimate with their wives, not having the ability to raise their kids like normal kids. They were suffering something unknown to people before or after. And now it got worse. Moshe Rabbeinu comes and cries out to Hashem at the end of last week's parasha in chapter 5, verse 22, where he says, "Why have you sent me? Why have you sent me to be the one that is the bearer of bad news, to bring all this suffering to your people?" And Hashem, if you notice, is mentioned in two different names. Hashem has multiple names. You have the most common ones, which is the Elokim, which is the attribute of judgment, of strict justice, and then you have the Yud Kei Vav Kei, which the verse ends with, which is the attribute of mercy. And this verse has both names, where it says that Hashem spoke to Moshe, and he says to him, I am Hashem. But the names that he used, Hashem that he used, were different names, if you will. So the sages teach us that Hashem is responding to Moshe's outcry. Why did you use me? Why are you bringing this suffering to the people? And in essence, from a certain respect, he is first rebuking Moshe. He's rebuking Moshe, but more than anything else, he's teaching Moshe and he's teaching all of us that he is God. And what does it mean that he is God? Rashi explains to us that the reason why he used both of these names, and the reason why he says, I am God, is because he wants Moshe and us to know that I am the one that runs this world. I created this world. And if I said something, there is no such thing as a reality that exists where what I said doesn't get fulfilled. Unlike man that can have plenty of empty promises, unlike a man that could lie, unlike a man that could be simply wrong, that's not God. If I say something, it automatically becomes a reality. So if I said to Avraham Avinu that we have a covenant, that we made the covenant of in Genesis chapter 15 verse 14, the Brit Ben HaBetarim, the covenant between the parts, where I told Avraham that I will, although his descendants will be slaves unto a foreign nation, but when the salvation time comes, I will punish those that tortured them. I will punish those that enslaved them. I will punish them because they took it too far. They didn't just fulfill their role, they wanted to do this evil. And if I said that I will punish, that means I will punish. If I said that I will bring salvation, that means I will bring salvation. And this is a critical part for a person to know when it comes to the matters of God. Because one of the 13 principles of faith that we have in Judaism, that is a fundamental belief, so much so that the Rambam and the rest of the major poskim say that if a person does not believe in these 13 principles of faith, they're considered an apikos, a heretic. They cannot be counted in the minyan. This is a person that you cannot rely on to be a witness in a Jewish ceremony. He cannot be a witness in a court. It's a disaster. One of those principles is the principle of reward and punishment. And over the last several years, as we've taught extensively about the topic, whether it's the most recent release of the movie Gehenom, which Baruch Hashem has helped many people that have watched it. His only prayer that we have is that Hashem adds a few more zeros to the number of viewers and people that have watched it, because we know that it'll help them. But other than that, the results, Baruch Hashem, have been stellar. You see people that have watched it, it's changing their life. And it's certainly making a major transformation in the Jewish world for those that are looking for the truth. But unfortunately, there's always going to be that Erev Rav. There's always going to be those people that may not be Erev Rav, but are still running away from the truth. They don't want to face facts, and they simply are looking for anything that they can possibly find to stand on, to convince themselves and others that perhaps God is not going to punish, like the Torah says countless times, like Hashem says in this week's parasha. We are meant to be a light unto the nations, not to follow their misguided practices. Remember, every Jew has to remember that he's a Jew and she's a Jew. We don't celebrate non-Jewish holidays, even if they seem harmless. It's a zilzul, disrespect to the Torah, and could lead to Chilul Hashem, desecration of God's name. Stick to our holy Torah and our own holidays. That's the path of a true Jew.